Just want to make sure you're not running away from
Yeah.
it. Just had some onions, I guess, at lunch or something. And I was just like, what? Hey there, I'm David Cinelli.
And Ariana Kermick.
What the heck is my hand doing? I was doing like this weird, anyway. This is our last topic for today. I know you guys all enjoyed this. Maybe we'll do some more of these, but we're continuing talking about if you are, a landlord as opposed to a tenant, sales, leasing, those kind of things, and our fast talk rights.
Yeah. And today we're going to talk about a little bit of the differences between being a commercial landlord and a residential landlord.
Correct. Right. So first and foremost, between residential and commercial, there's a lot of differences. Rights also very different. And even within some of the commercial stuff, depending on what kind of a lease you sign, there also is some different regulations. We're going to be a little more general with all this. We're going to assume that if you are a commercial tenant, you have signed a net lease. And that lease basically means that, that you're not just paying one fee in which, you're only covering just your rent. A lot of times in commercial properties, if something goes wrong with, like, say you have a bathroom that went, or your sink, or electrical lighting outside, or something, or a flood's happening, believe it or not, it's the tenant, and written in these net leases, or all these leases, in which the tenant is responsible for covering the cost and getting that up and running. Obviously, we know that's not the same situation in residential.
Yeah, in residential, the landlord definitely has more responsibility and takes on more of the costs of repairs if anything goes.
Well, they take on all the costs of repairs, yeah. And you try to recoup that with rent. Whereas, commercial, for example, if there's something that the building needs improvement, yes, the landlord may cover that, but guess who's going to charge back? We call it TMI, taxes, maintenance, and insurance, in which you can amortize for example, the fixing the roof over 25 years. So which means the tenant over 25 years is actually paying for the roof. So that is one thing that is much different in residential. Also, if you're a residential tenant and you miss rent, can you be locked out and kicked out of your house?
No. And definitely not within...
Well, you could be, but it takes some time,
Yeah.
right? You have to go through a court procedure. They have to evict you. It could take 6 months. It could take a long time.
Yeah.
If you're commercial, you don't miss after 15 days, what can happen?
Change the locks and you're stuck.
You could be locked out of your
Yeah.
property. It's, again, commercial is very different. The landlords have a lot more power when it comes to commercial as it does to residential. Yeah, after 15 days, you haven't paid your rent. Too bad, buddy. No, pay me my money, otherwise that's it. You're gone. You're locked up. Find a new location, and they get to keep everything inside. Well, not everything, but anyway, it just gets. There's a lot more legal stuff happens. The sheriff comes. I've had to do it a couple of times. It's pretty brutal. The sheriff comes. They lock the doors. If there's anything of value inside, we could sell it as a landlord in order to compensate for the loss of rent. But you have a certain amount of period in which you're able to pay that back. If you're not able to pay that back, you're SOL. Just the way it works. Yeah, it's kind of scary. So just make sure you're on payments.
Yeah.
Now, with commercial as well. So say you have a 5-year lease. Usually within the lease, there's a period before we're allowed to negotiate a new sale price. That's the other thing that's different between residential and commercial. If your lease is ending in residential, what happens if your lease is ending? If you want to negotiate, are you able really to negotiate a price increase with the landlord?
No, the landlord in residential has to follow the regulatory percentage that they can increase the rent by.
That's correct. And you have to give 90 days notice to your tenant. And if the tenant's leaving, they say after 90 days, they can give you 60 days notice after the 1 month. If they figure it doesn't work out that, they're able to leave. That's why they do that. You can increase it 90 days based on the government regulation. Basically, they have 30 days if they decide if they want to stay or not. And then if they decide to leave, they've given you the 60 days notice. Commercial, on the other hand, totally different ballgame.
Yeah.
Totally different. A lot of times you're negotiating 6 months before your lease is done, and there is no precedent in that way. The landlord can ask for whatever they want. 100% increase, 150%. My guy that's doing my lighting in my house, he just said his landlord increased 125%.
Wow.
My clients at the rolling pin, same idea. The landlord said take it or leave it. Just the way it works. If you leave, then fine, you leave. Now, if you're still negotiating after that 6 months and you haven't come to an agreement, what could the landlord do so for example, say my lease is done March 31st. As of April 1st, what could they do?
The landlord can charge double a month of rent for every month that you stay in there past that date.
That is correct. So if your rent was, let's just make it easy, was $1,000, and all of a sudden April 1st comes around, you have no agreement in place, it's within their legal right to charge you $2,000 a month. So you want that agreement in place. Helps protect you as well. If you're selling a property, again, we'll talk about it a little bit, but if you are selling a property with a tenant inside the property in the commercial side, the longer the lease, the better it is for the sale of the property, unless you want to use it first.
Yeah.
Especially if you're selling a business, if you have a lease in place, that is worth more than, than somebody who just has a 1 month lease in their property, sorry, 1 year lease left in their property, because technically the landlord could do this and it could increase your rent, and therefore all your margins have changed. Clear as mud? There's a lot in this one, I know.
Good one.
If you have questions on this, unfortunately, I've been a landlord for a commercial side and on the residential side. There's lots of questions we know we can help you with. So please feel free to reach out.
Let us know.
Bye, guys.
Thanks.